On today's show, Sebastian is back and we're talking about some standout prospects at the U18 World Championship. All coming up on today's episode of Locked On NHL Prospects.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this podcast, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I'm Hattie Kalakash, joined by Sebastian High, both directors of scouting at Dobber Prospects. And on today's show, we'll be breaking down the standout prospects from the group stage at the U18 World Championship, which is featuring a ton of draft-eligible forwards for the 2024 NHL draft, as well as some 2025s and 2026s. So we'll get into all of that on today's episode. We'll start off with some draft year forwards in the first segment, break down the likes of Cole Eiserman, Alex Zetterberg, Konsta, Helenius, a bunch of guys who are having great tournaments so far. In our second segment, we'll look at some draft-eligible defensemen, so the likes of Alfons Freij, Cole Hutson, Leon Mugli, all of that good stuff, give you the rundown on how they're doing in this tournament so far. And last but not least, we'll look at some draft -1 and draft -2 prospects that are doing good at this tournament, including Gavin McKenna, who's having an absolute worldie of a tournament. We'll talk about his performances for Team Canada and a lot more. But before we get into today's show, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout for $20 off your first purchase. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment letting us know what you want us to talk about next. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, make sure to make us your first listen of the day and leave us a rating and review. So let's get right into it here with the forwards that have performed really well among draft eligibles. And I think we can start on the USA side because, surprise, surprise, Cole Eiserman scoring goals. Who would have thunk? Who would have known?
What a shocker indeed. The 6', 200-pound winger has been lighting up this tournament and honestly quelling a couple of our doubts over at Dobber Prospects. We really liked the performances he's had so far in this tournament as a whole as a scouting team. And I know that there's going to be another furious debate around ranking him in our final meeting, which has been the one consistent factor throughout the entire ranking process for us all season long has been struggling on pinning down Cole Eiserman. But he's been playing some excellent hockey in these games. It hasn't been against the strongest of competition in the world by any means, but he has been getting to the net front a lot. The off-puck movement has really shown very brightly. And he's shown that he does a little bit more than just score goals and just be the finishing touch on high-end plays created for him, but also like creating some space for himself, using some physicality to create a couple feet of space, and also doggedly going for those loose pucks around the net front. So there's been a bit more variety in his offensive game at this tournament than we've been used to seeing this season, which is certainly promising. And definitely a player that could easily go in the top 10 and who has a high goal-scoring upside in the NHL. But yeah, it's going to be a great time ranking him yet again in our final meeting.
Yeah, for sure. I think the main standout for me with Cole Eiserman is he's looking to pass more. I still don't see him as a net positive defensive player. I don't think he's shown me anything at this tournament that indicates that. But I've liked the variability in his ability to create offense. He's not just your trigger man. He's not just your. I mean, even though he's got a ton of goals. He's not just looking to shoot. He's not overlooking passing options in favor of a shot. He's hitting that toggle between pass and shoot fairly well, which has been a decent and pleasant surprise for me in this tournament. Moving on to another USA forward, we've got Trevor Connelly, who has been wow. He scored a Michigan goal. It was the 7th goal in a 7-1 win against Latvia. But listen, I mean, the skill level it requires to do that, I think we were already aware was there with Trevor Connelly. And I don't think anything comes as a surprise in terms of what Connolly's doing in this tournament. I think everything he's doing right now is par for the course in terms of what he's able to do, both in terms of his strengths and his weaknesses. In terms of strengths, I mean, we're talking about a supremely skilled handler, a supremely skilled goal scorer and playmaker. But in terms of the weaknesses for me, it's the habits. I mean, this is a player who consistently looks to get the primary assist or the goal. He's not making passes as a means, he's making them as an end. If he sees a slot pass option, he will throw the puck there. it'll go out of the zone like 60% of the time, but 40% of the time it connects and it leads to a shot on goal. It's just the way he plays. I don't think that's going to be something you coach out of him. I think this is something that if you're looking to bet on him as a draft team, you build around that. You take that into you factor that into consideration when building your lines, when building your roster. But I have been pleasantly surprised as well with the effort level, the energy defensively. It's been on the uptick since, I'd say, around February or March with Conley, but it's only gotten better since then. And yeah, it's been pretty interesting to watch. But like I said, I have my reservations with Conley regarding his ability to keep it simple, to play inside structure. But I mean, if he gets on a team that doesn't care about structure, that is very fluid, very very loose in terms of his structural system, and is just looking to have these dynamic, creative, inventive players on the ice, I think Trevor Connelly's a great shout for that. But moving on to some Swedes, we've got a couple of Swedes we want to highlight, including one that you've gone really high on as of late. Well, two actually that you've gone really high on. Talk me through Alex Zetterberg first and foremost. How's this tournament been so far?
It's been a breakout performance in many ways for Alexander Zetterberg. This is a 5'8", 160-pound winger who is the smallest player in this draft class among players that we're really looking at, and in terms of both like physically small, but also how he plays the game. He is very much averse to physical contact and is quite like often pushed to the perimeter of play as a result of that, especially
Yeah.
even against junior competition, right? So he hasn't been playing at all, I think, against the pros just yet as a result of that. So there's a bunch of translatability questions around this player, but he has been Sweden's main offensive driver at this tournament so far. The puck always goes through him on that first power play unit at even strength. He's also been a machine at generating high danger scoring chances. A really talented distributor from the half wall, especially, and he has that combination of vision from a playmaking perspective, high end passing ability, really impressive hands and agility, and also a developing goal scoring game. Like he's a real shooting threat at this tournament as well. So he's really difficult to read for defenders, especially in this age bracket, and he's been devastating there for Sweden. And he's been combining on a ton of plays with the other player I want to mention here, which is Swedish captain Linus Eriksson, who I've liked a lot this season, and I think he's going to take a bit of a jump on our final board at Dapper Prospect because I've already been kind of pumping his tires a bit over the past couple months, and this tournament is really solidifying a lot of what I've been seeing in league play with him. So Eriksson is a really intelligent two-way center, not necessarily a player who's going to overwhelm you with like elite level tools necessarily, but just very intelligent, a bunch of professional habits. He likes to initiate contact. He gets to the inside. He's not pushed to the perimeter. He's defensively responsible. He sticks in positions really well. He's a very good system player. He's the opposite of a Trevor Connelly, for instance. He plays so well in this system. He has an assigned role and clear assignments. He is golden, and coaches trust him very easily as a result of that. And him and Zetterberg have really been combining nicely in the offensive zone. So they're both decent playmakers, but also have decent releases. So the puck's often been going between those two players on the power play to kind of shift the angle of attack against defensive structures. So those are definitely two Swedes that have stuck out to me in my viewings.
Yeah, for sure. I think my question with Eriksson, my issue with him is that if you're looking at his performances in this tournament, we're talking about a player who's physically, I mean, already pretty built. He's a
Oh,
physically
yeah.
mature player who's been playing pro hockey pretty much all year. Um, I think it was inevitable that he was going to end up on the top line in this tournament, be their captain, and kind of be at the forefront of their ice time. So I'm kind of curious to see how he develops, because I see a lot of similarities with David Edstrom from last year. Like there are a lot of similarities in terms of his build, his lack of high end tools, and the level of maturity he plays with at such a young age. And I think that David Edstrom also had a pretty good tournament at the U18 Worlds last year. So I think that it's the type of thing where you kind of track their progress or development and see which direction they go, because I don't know how easy it's going to be to build on puck skills. But last but not least, we'll talk about two Finnish players. We'll go pretty quick on these two. So Konsta Helenius, first and foremost, great tournament so far. He's a top-ranked Finn on 99% of boards, and for good reason. He's one of the smartest prospects in this draft. Lacks the high-end tools, but the translatable habits, the smarts, and honestly, I've gotten a bit higher on his playmaking as of late. I've really liked the playmaking ability. And last but not least, Emil Hemming has been having a great tournament. He's turned into Alex Ovechkin at this tournament, just blasting one-timers from the half wall, which isn't his usual shot. He usually plays on the other side and does those little catch and release shots, but I really like his ability to kind of shift defenses and create in transition. He's become a real good play driver, so it's been really interesting to watch. But that's our first segment. We'll get into our second segment where we talk about some draft-eligible defensemen, including Alfons Freij, Leo Salin, Helenius, Cole Hutson, and a lot more, right after these messages from our sponsors at eBay Motors and Game Time.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and far more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what it is that you are looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, which is available to US customers only, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
If you're looking to buy cheap tickets last minute to any event, Game Time is the best place to get that done. They're a great source for tickets for any type of event. It's not just for games, it's for comedy, theater, anything that requires tickets. Game Time has you covered. And they're obsessed with saving you money. They've got a bunch of different deals to help you save some cash. Primarily we're looking at the zone deals, for example, which are great. You pick the section, Game Time picks a seat, and that gives you an average of about 10 to 15% of savings on your tickets. They also have flash deals. And the closer you get to the start of the event, the cheaper the tickets get, the more deals you can find. It's pretty interesting. And the Game Time guarantee makes sure you always get the best price. If you find a ticket in the same section and row for less than what Game Time has to offer, Game Time credits you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, super simple. You just create an account and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Alrighty, so moving on to our second segment, we'll talk about some draft-eligible defensemen that have been doing really good at this U18 Worlds tournament so far in the group stage. And we'll start off in Sweden with a couple of defensemen there. The two defensemen that I highlighted in our Prospects to Watch episode, it's going to be Alfons Freij and Leo Salin Helenius. Now, I think in the first game for Sweden, I think it was against Canada, I liked Leo Salin Helenius' game quite a bit more than Alfons Freij's. I think Alfons Freij had a bit of, I also highlighted that when comparing the two in our episode on that, but basically Freij is a bit less consistent. I mean, he has some games where he's got that high-end defensive ability, some games where it's, chaotic and honestly awful. With Salin Helenius, I the way I phrased it was it's consistently below average. And I feel like that really highlighted itself against Canada, but in the two games after that, I think the script flipped completely, and Alfons Freij just ran away with the lead in terms of the best defenseman on the Swedish roster, right?
Yeah, fully agreed. Alfons Freij does have those games that just aren't quite the strongest. I've had the same viewings as well at the J20 level, and against Canada, I saw a little bit of that for sure. And I would say that this hasn't been the best I've seen Alfons Freij play this season, in any of the games in this tournament. Even though I fully agree that he has been Sweden's best defenseman in the couple games since then. But Leo Salin Helenius continues to kind of mystify me in a couple ways, where he makes some decisions that just he shouldn't make, and he makes them quite consistently. where you're just kind of left perplexed a little bit as an onlooker. But the tools are fantastic. These are two players with elite level mobility. Sally Helenius is also quite strongly built. There's definitely a good frame to build off of there to become an NHL defenseman. With Alfons Freij, he's going to have to spend a bit more time in the gym before making the jump to professional North American hockey. But it's been a decent tournament for them both. I think that they both are certainly showing their strengths alongside their weaknesses. Leo Helenius has had some very good sequences on the power play, for instance, showing off his dynamic offensive ability. There's some bright flashes of playmaking there, but with Alfons Freij, there's a real composure on the puck that I've liked all season long, and that's really starting to come into its own as this tournament here is progressing.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, there's a pretty stark difference in the level of decision making between those two. I think that Alfons Freij, the way that he perceives the game is just so different. Like, Freij is very much the type of player who just will attack your heels, will cross over through the neutral zone. Solly Helenius is a bit more reliable in terms of, you know what you're getting every shift out of him. It's pretty consistent what you get out of Solly Helenius. It's just that the consistency there is both good and bad because he's pretty consistently making weird decisions as well. You know what I mean? So it's just, I feel like with Freij, it's just his best games. He's one of the best defensemen in this draft. His worst games, he's not a first rounder. So it's just, it depends on which games you're watching for him. But moving on to Cole Hutson, who's also been having a pretty good tournament. Cole Hutson has matched JD Forrest's NTP goal scoring record for defensemen of all time. This is a player who has played, I think, 20 less games than JD Forrest, so pretty interesting stuff from him so far this season. And Hutson has been really good at this tournament. I think that he's a player who, you play him to his strengths. You play him on the top power play. You play him in offensive zone scenarios. You try to get him involved in offensive zone transitions as much as possible because that's where he excels. At the end of the day, I don't think you can make Cole Hutson a bona fide defensive player, but he's very good in a specialty role. And I think that kind of reflects itself in where we have him ranked at Dobber Prospects, right? Like, this is a player who, we have questions about where he ends up in a roster, but, he's a pretty good specialty player. You can play him on your second power play. He'll get you some good minutes there. And yeah, try to match him with a guy like EJ Emery, who has been matched with pretty much this whole tournament, which has been a pretty decent pair. A bit chaotic at times, pretty decent. But yeah, I've been fairly impressed with Cole Hutson. Moving on to Switzerland. Switzerland's been pretty interesting this season. They gave Canada a run for their money in the first period before Canada just took it and ran with it. But Leon Mugli has been looking really good at this tournament, right?
He's been the leader of that Swiss team. Not only is he the captain, but he's also the player with by far the most professional experience, and that very much shows on the ice. He's certainly a lead by example type in this tournament, and I've liked his performances a lot. He's not the flashiest defenseman available in this draft class, but his habits are sound. He's really consistent. I've liked that throughout this season with him, and it's one of the reasons that he was also so consistently getting minutes with a very good NL team all season long, was that they could throw him on the third pairing and that they always knew what they were going to get out of him. That was consistently sound decision-making, and he's fairly mobile. He doesn't get beat very often. He can spring a breakout pretty well. He's a solid passer. He reads his teammates really well. He plays extremely well into a system, which is key when you're playing professional minutes at a young age. And that's been very clear in this tournament too. He's the player that is leading the way for his teammates of how to play into the system that as coaches want the team to implement. And I've liked this tournament quite a bit so far. He's a very clear top 64 player for me as well.
Yeah, 100%. And we're talking about European defensemen who make good decisions, who have good transition ability. It's really interesting. When I watched Thomas Galvish for Czechia, he was one of their best players in the past 3 games they've played. Just a solid decision maker, really good in transition. And what really stands out for me is that despite the relative lack of size, he's an extremely good defensive player. Like his stick positioning in transition, his ability to kind of shepherd players to the boards along the, off the rush, and his ability to defend in his own, especially against this age bracket, has been fantastic. And I think a big part of that is Galvish, playing so frequently against older competition. I mean, this is not his first rodeo at the U18 Worlds. He's played, I think, at the World Juniors before. He's played, a couple of minutes at pro this year. Like there's a decent foundation of experience against bigger, stronger, faster players that allows him to play such good defensive hockey. But the real standout for me with Galvish is I don't think he makes a wrong decision on the ice. He's constantly just firing pucks at teammates' sticks, tape to tape. And when an option closes up, he's really good at improvising, finding another solution. I've just been impressed with so much of his defensive game and his transition game so far. I just don't see a standout offensive tool. Do you?
Yeah, not really. It's probably the mobility in terms of shifting the angle of attack in the offensive zone is something I've liked a lot. But
Yeah.
in terms of actual like offensive tool, in terms of putting the puck in the net directly, he's a decent distributor, but it's very much like perimeter based. It's kind of like the horseshoe type of distributing and kind of putting the burden of attacking the middle and attacking the slot onto the more creative players on the ice.
100%, fully agreed. But that's it for our second segment. We'll get into our third segment where we highlight some draft -1 and draft -2 prospects. So 16, 17-year-olds that have been doing really good at this U18 Worlds that won't be eligible until next year's draft, or even in one case, the year after that. We'll get into that in just a second after these messages from our sponsors at Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's the second intermission, and the score sheet is not looking good. You're feeling low. You're not sure if your team can dig deep and pull off the win, and that's when you dig deep. You lift your head up. You say to yourself, it's time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much as my friend's money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's a Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards and compare your progress with your buddies. There's so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. You can make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, and you can charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. Alrighty, so let's close things off here with our final segment. We'll look at some draft -1 and draft -2 prospects that have been doing really good at this tournament. I think the conversation needs to start with James Hagens. He's almost 100% going to be the top draft eligible at the 2025 NHL draft. He has been the driving force of a NTDP U18 team on which he's one of the youngest players. And it's just been lights out at this tournament again. I think he leads the tournament in points, doesn't he?
He does indeed. He has 10 points through 3 games at the time of recording, and that is clear of second by 2 points. So not bad whatsoever for the D-1 who has been standing out in our viewings for like what feels like 2 years at this point. And is certainly the favorite to go first overall in 2025. But this tournament, he's shown it all. He's a terrific two-way center, tremendous playmaker, really good puck handler, and so confident in his own abilities as well. So he might not have the same level of dynamism like a player that we're going to talk about in a second here in Gavin McKenna, but very few players can quite match that ability.
Yeah, for sure. I think the main standout for me with James Hagens is just how often he's drawing players in, how often he's shifting defenses with his kind of gravitational pull. It's ridiculous to watch. And this is a player who, I mean, for the longest time has been playing with snipers, and I think that he's mastered the art of playing off of goal scorers, right? So I think that once he gets to the NHL, I'm really hoping a team that has a bona fide goal scorer, either really close in the prospect pool already established and young in the NHL, gets a hold of him, because I think that he can gel so well with those goal scorers. He's really good at drawing players in and opening up space for them. He's really good at hitting them in their hip pocket, in their wheelhouse. Just a tremendous distributor. But he's also, I mean, don't knock on his goal scoring. It's a great tool in this game. But moving on to a Team Canada player who is the youngest player on that roster, Gavin McKenna, only eligible for the 2026 NHL draft. God, I feel old. And he has been ridiculous at this tournament. I mean, there's just so much to say. I don't think there's a more dynamic player in this tournament, right?
There is none. That is the answer here. Like there is none. Gavin McKenna is by far the most dynamic player in this tournament, and certainly the favorite to go first overall in 2026. That team is going to get an excellent player that year. But he's been driving Canada's offense. Multiple of his goals have come out of literally nothing, and like end-to-end rushes where he just completely dissects opposing defensive structures and does so with apparent ease. So he's been tremendous in this tournament, certainly given all the Team Canada fans a real treat to watch here. But he's been combining a ton throughout with another D-1. This is the third D-1 that we are now talking about in this segment that is in the top 4 in points in this tournament. Cole Eiserman is the only other one that cracks the top 4 that's draft eligible. But Porter Martone, also very good at hockey, right?
Yep, the workhorse from Whitehorse. He has been very interesting to watch at this tournament. He is a dog. He's got that dog in him. Like he digs deep in his energy levels when the game gets rough, when you need a goal. I think he was Canada's best player when when they were struggling. Like he was Canada's best forward or best skater when they were struggling against Switzerland in that first period. And then they went down 1-0. And before you knew it, 10 seconds after that, like dump and chase, kind of a bank play. Kashan Aitchison scores a goal. And I'm pretty sure Porter Martone was on the ice for that and got an assist, but I'll check to be sure. But yeah, Martone for me is he's such a clutch player with so much energy, so much pace to his game. I mean, he's a captain for Team Canada this year, if I'm not mistaken. Like, there's a reason for that.
He is indeed.
Liam Greentree's on that roster. Liam Greentree's a captain of the Windsor Spitfires, and Porter Martone is captaining this Canada team. There's a reason for that. Martone is exactly what NHL scouts and NHL teams look for in players: leadership ability, character, grit, intensity. He's got those power forward elements to his game. But on top of that, he's just a really supremely skilled player. Like his playmaking touch is ridiculous. He scored, he batted a puck out of midair after a beautiful Gavin McKenna play. Like, he's got the skill level, but man, has he got pretty much everything to look for a scouting team if you're working in the NHL. Like this is an NHL player. Like there's no doubt about it. Porter Martone's going to make a beautiful NHL player, top 6. Gritty, intense type of player. Unless something really bad happens, no doubt about it for me, Porter Martone. And we're talking about a player who isn't even eligible to be drafted yet this way. Like it's just that clear in his game, right?
Certainly is. He's tremendous. Like as you mentioned, a high skill power forward. Like this is the mold of modern power forward that we're seeing like more and more frequently at this stage. Like more on the European side of things in recent years, and like that Mikko Rantanen and Yuri Slafkovsky mold of player, but Martone is up the same alley in terms of that combination of physicality, energy, but also that soft skill, the creativity on puck, the goal scoring and playmaking, like double-edged sword in the offensive zone, and also chipping in the neutral zone on entries as well as defensively. Like there's not too much to dislike in his game.
Yeah, there's not much he can't do either. One last play for Canada, Matt Schaefer on defense has been absurd for me. He's just been so good. The word for Matt Schaefer is control. This is a player who's eligible for the 2025 NHL draft, and he controls the condition of the puck, I think, better than anyone in this draft. Like, even Zeev Buyam and Zane Parekh and Sam Dickinson and Artem Levshinov, like, for me, Matt Schaefer controls the condition of the puck better than those guys. And what I mean by that is a player who consistently makes plays that improve where the puck ends up. He's not making a lot of hope plays. He's not making a lot of Hail Mary plays. Every play he makes, every pass he makes, every deke he makes serves to take the puck off his opponent's stick, put it on his teammate's stick in a better situation. And that ability to control play at such a young age, like there's a maturity to his game. There's a polishedness to his decision-making that you rarely see from defensemen this age. And there's a reason why it's been a staple in Canada's top 4 so far in this tournament. And that includes the likes of Charlie Ellick and Henry Muse and Harrison Brunick. And yeah, Matt Schaefer's just been up there with those guys and performing really, really well. Last but not least, I want you to talk me through Victor Eklund. And if you recognize the last name, it's for a good reason, right?
Indeed, it is. This is William's younger brother, and he has been fantastic as a D-1. He's quite old for his draft class, as an October birthday, so he's not all that much younger than other players at this tournament. But the 5'11", 161 winger has been playing like lights out in this tournament so far. He's already up to like 2 goals and 4 points through 3 games as a D-1, which is solid production to say the least. And he's been playing this season in quite a bit in Hockey Allsvenskan alongside Linus Eriksson for Jürgenens. And he logged 15 games both in the regular season and another 15 in the playoffs, putting up 4 points in the regular season and 6 in the playoffs. So he uses his intensity alongside his like elite level agility and really solid puck handling ability and on puck dynamism to consistently create. He has that dog in him, but he's also really slick, has a bunch of soft skill, and like the playmaking game with him is also a real standout. He's a ton of fun, and I'm very excited to see where he ends up at the 2025 NHL draft because I think he's already going to be one of my favorites in that entire draft class. I love watching him play.
For sure. If he wasn't right-handed, I'd have thought they cloned draft year William Eklund. But that wraps things up for today's show. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment letting us know what you want us to talk about next. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please leave us a rate and review. And make sure to make us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, make sure to check out Locked On Sports Today. They've got all your news and updates on a 24/7 news channel over on YouTube, all about sports. And make sure to tune in for our next shows as we continue our prospect coverage for the U18 Worlds, for the 2024 NHL Draft, and for the month of May. This has been Hadi Kalakash with Sebastian High, both directors of scouting at Dauber Prospects, and we hope you tune in next time.